Aloha, friends. This is Tutu, Signs at Aloha Food Forest. And I just recently learned about this website, jackhair.com. Jack Hare is the father of the modern cannabis movement. And here in California, where I live, cannabis is legalized again. Um, so it's not so like nerve-wracking to talk about it. But back when Jack Hare was uh, trying to bring all this information to light about how useful cannabis is, and he wrote this book called The Emperor Wears No Clothes, and it talks about just a whole bunch of different things. Let me just show you real quickly. It has 16 chapters, and we're going to start with chapter 1 here of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. It's an overview of the history of cannabis hemp. And just before I start, a little bit about me. I love plants. I think all plants should be legal. I don't think it's anyone's business or right to take away our rights or abilities to grow plants. I do believe we should use discretion and choose the plants that are good in our gardens, but it's not somebody's right to tell us what we can and can't grow. So he starts this chapter 1 of the book with an overview of the history of cannabis hemp. And he shares here in this first section that he puts little explanations or documentations throughout underneath the paragraphs and at the bottom of the chapter. So, and you can verify the facts cited herein with Encyclopedia Britannica, which was printed primarily on paper produced with cannabis hemp for over 150 years. You can search cannabis sativa L and find a lot of information online. So for cannabis, there are many other names, also hemp, weed, pot, spinach, marijuana, reefer, grass, ganja, bong, the kind, daga, herb, and probably a lot of other names, all for the same plant, the cannabis plant. And then in US geography, there is Hempstead, Long Island, Hempstead County, Arkansas, Hempstead, Texas, Hemp Hill, North Carolina, Hempfield, Pennsylvania, and among others. They were named after cannabis growing regions or after family names derived from hemp growing. And then some American historical notes. In the early 1600s, America's first marijuana law was enacted in Virginia, ordering, quote, all farmers to make trial of or grow Indian hemp seed. More mandatory must-grow hemp cultivation laws were enacted later in Massachusetts in 1631 and Connecticut in 1632 and in the Chesapeake colonies into the mid 1700s. So this was such an important crop that everyone was told they have to grow it. Even in England, much sought after the much sought after prize of full British citizenship was bestowed by a decree of the crown on foreigners who would grow cannabis, and fines were often levied against those who refused. Cannabis hemp was legal tender, also known as money, in most of the Americas from the early 1600s to the early 1800s. Why? To encourage American farmers to grow more. And you could pay your taxes with cannabis hemp throughout America for over 200 years. Wow, wouldn't that be a fun thing? You could even be jailed in America for not growing cannabis during several periods of shortage. For example, in Virginia in the 1600s, 1760s. Okay, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson grew cannabis on their plantations. When Jefferson was an envoy to France, he went to great expense and risk to procure particularly good hemp seeds, which were smuggled illegally into Turkey from China. See, the Chinese rulers so valued their hemp seed that they made its exportation a capital offense. So if they found out someone was exporting the cannabis seeds, they could be killed. And then the Chinese character Ma was the earliest name for hemp. Ma. That's interesting. That's like mama, mother. By the 10th century, Ma had become the generic term for fibers of all kinds, including jute and ramie. By then, the word for hemp had become tama or dama, meaning great hemp. And then let's see, the next part here, the US Census of 1850 counted over 8,300 hemp plantations with at least 2,000 acres growing cannabis hemp for cloth, canvas, and cordage. Many of these plantations were located in the South or the border states because of cheap slave labor available for the intense labor-intensive hemp industry. And so this figure does not include the tens of thousands of smaller farms growing cannabis, nor the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of family hemp patches in America. Nor does it take into account that well into this century, 80% of America's hemp consumption for 200 years still had to be imported from Russia, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Poland. So obviously, they're growing hemp over there. Okay, so Benjamin Franklin started one of America's first paper mills with cannabis, and this allowed America to have a free colonial press and newspaper without having to beg or justify the need for paper and books from England. In addition, various marijuana and hashish extracts were the first, second, or third most prescribed medicines in the US from 1842 to 1890s. Its medicinal use continued legally through the 1930s for humans and figured even more prominently in American and world veterinary medicines during this time. Isn't that interesting? So it's good for humans and animals. So cannabis extract medicines were produced by some of these large corporations and many other American and European companies and apothecaries. During all this time, there was not one reported death from cannabis extract medicines and virtually no abuse or mental disorders reported, except, he says, for first-time or novice users occasionally becoming disoriented or overly introverted. So here's some world historical notes. The earliest known woven fabric was apparently of hemp, which began to be worked 8,000 to 7,000 BC. In the body of literature of archaeology, anthropology, philology, economy, history pertaining to hemp is in general agreement that at the very least, from more than 1,000 years before the time of Christ, cannabis hemp, also known as marijuana, was our planet's largest agricultural crop and most important industry, involving thousands of products and enterprises, producing the overall majority of Earth's fiber, fabric, lighting oil, paper, incense, and medicines. In addition, it was a primary source of essential food oil and protein for humans and animals. According to virtually every anthropologist and university in the world, marijuana was also used in most of our religions and cults as one of the 7 or so most widely used mood, mind, or pain-altering drugs when taken as psychotropic or psychedelic sacraments. So it's used in rituals or like, something you do when you're trying to connect to the spirit world. Almost without exception, these sacred drug experiences inspired our superstitions, amulets, amulets, talismans, religions, prayers, and language codes. So there's some footnotes on that, which of course you can find here at jackherrera.com, Emperor Chapter 1. So great wars were fought to ensure the availability of hemp. For example, the primary reason for the War of 1812 was access to Russian cannabis hemp. Russian hemp was also the principal reason that Napoleon and his continental systems allies invaded Russia in 1812. In 1942, the Japanese invasion of the Philippines cut off the supply of Manila hemp. The U.S. government distributed 400,000 pounds of cannabis seeds to American farmers from Wisconsin to Kentucky, who produced 42,000 tons of hemp fiber annually until 1946 when the war ended. So why has cannabis hemp been so important in history? Because cannabis hemp is overall the strongest, most durable, longest lasting natural soft fiber on the planet. Its leaves and flower tops were, depending on the culture, the first, second, or third most important and most used medicines for 2/3 of the world's people for at least 3,000 years until the turn of the 20th century. Botanically, hemp is a member of the most advanced plant family on Earth. It's dioecious, meaning that it has male, female, and sometimes hermaphroditic sexual organs on the same plant. It's also woody and herbaceous and an annual that uses the sun more efficiently than virtually any other plant on our planet, reaching a robust 12 to 20 feet or more in one short growing season. It can be grown in virtually any climate or soil condition on Earth, even marginal ones. So hemp is by far Earth's premier renewable natural resource. This is why hemp is so very important. So that is the conclusion of Chapter 1 of Jack Hare's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes. So I hope you enjoyed that reading, and I will read the other chapters of the book in upcoming videos. So please like and subscribe so you can get notified when I upload those videos. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you so much. Aloha.